part of Alistair's presentation earlier on today, he talked about the ecosystem, and this next panel is all about the ecosystem. I think over 3,000 volunteers, of which 1,000 have contributed really positively to a particular project that's taken place since the inception of the Scottish Tech Army. And I'm delighted to introduce Joanna, who is going to be able to facilitate this particular panel and introduce all of our guests. So, Joanna.
A warm welcome, everybody. I'm Joanna Allen. I think lots of familiar faces here, but if you don't know me, I'm the head of projects and programs for the Scottish Tech Army. I'm delighted to welcome you here, and I'm joined on stage, which I feel a little bit like I'm on the set of a Marvel movie. We describe our volunteers as the superheroes. These guys all work. They've got lots of other commitments. They're feeding kids, they're living their lives, and then they sit down in front of a computer and say, how can I help? It is a phenomenal amount of time some of them have given, and the impact they have, I can't even, if I could aggregate it, if I could summarize it, I would, but you know, they're just incredibly generous. So it's a massive thank you for me, and this session is really to celebrate what they've done and also give you guys a bit more of an idea of how some of the projects work and actually the opportunities available for what can be corporate volunteers, but equally all of you are welcome to help out in any way you would like. So without further ado, I'll let them introduce themselves so that everybody gets familiar with the voices, and we'll start with Doogie at the far end of the stage.
Morning everybody, hope everybody's well. So my name's Doogie. I'm a middle-aged man with greying hair and some glasses on for anybody who doesn't see.
Hi, I'm Jane Darks. I don't know, I'm probably middle-aged too. And I'm wearing green.
Hello, I'm Andy Steele, definitely middle to later aged, in maroon for no particular allegiances, but just happen to be in maroon today.
Hi, I'm Chidi. I'm here in my green blazer. I'm feeling pretty.
Yay!
Hello, my name is Magda Videra, and I'm also middle-aged, sadly. I'm wearing a black dress and bright green glasses.
Excellent. Well, welcome, guys. Doogie, let's start with you. You joined the Tech Army a while ago. What's your story and background?
Okay, cool. So my story is mainly about career change, if the truth be told. So I did 24 years in the Army as an avionics technician. Towards the end of my career, I wanted to move and do something different, and I knew I was going to need experience, so I was looking for projects like this. I was referred to the STA by the Open University. I was doing a data science course with them at the time. Since joining, I've worked on lots of projects, everything from developing apps with React through to more back-end projects on AWS and an astonishing number of websites and fixes for charities at the last minute. That's pretty much where I am, and I work here. So it did kind of work out. I work as a cloud engineer over in enterprise data platforms in the other building. So it did work out for me.
And how about yourself, Jane?
Yeah, I've been volunteering since 2020. I started in lockdown. I'm a contractor, and my contract came to an end, and I was looking for something to do to keep myself busy, and I would say that it really saved my sanity, working on lots of different projects, having stand-ups with people, working at all different companies that were on furlough, so it was a fantastic experience. And then since then I've dipped in and out, and I'm back in again, and I've been working on quite a lot of projects, and it's just been great. You get to do lots of different things, using different technologies and just using your sort of different parts of your experience. So it's been super.
Thank you. And we'll talk more about some of the projects in a minute. Andy?
Yeah, similar actually to Doogie and to Jane. I guess mine's is career change / lifestyle / life change. So I spent my career in financial services as well, actually, in data and tech and ops. For HSBC and for this fine institution at Barclays as well. I greatly enjoyed it, but then I had a couple of health ups and downs, a bit topsy-turvy for a while, and decided to take a change of direction. So that led to early retirement for me, and actually working with the Scottish Tech Army and some other volunteer groups has been amazing. It sort of forms a bridge or a transition between, like, we're all busy. We've all got busy, intense tech-based or otherwise lives. And to step into the unknown, having the bridge of, as I said, of having tremendous networks, tremendous teams, and actually the sort of fun side of tech as the main driver, it's been great fun. And I've already worked with some of the charities I think are present here today. And it's amazing what you can do quickly. Like if you bring some experience and some connections in industry, you can make progress really quickly across different charities, which I'm really enjoying.
And Chidi.
So for me, mine was a career change because I have a background in electrical engineering. And then during my master's program at the University of Nottingham, I had the chance to intern with a company that was building CRM systems for charities. And that was when I was exposed to building CRM systems. And ever since, have worked with charities, helping them use their CRM systems to fit their business processes. So I do a lot of volunteer work with charities looking to customize their CRM systems to fit with their business process.
And Magda.
So I've joined STA in 2021 after a career change as well, and also needing to get some experience and sort of hands-on experience. So I started working on a project with PCAFs with STA, which was successfully delivered and kind of stayed around. In the meantime, also got a job similarly like Doogie. I managed to secure a job thanks to experience that I got as a volunteer. And I now work as a Scrum Master in a company called Modular. And I still work with STA and help build their volunteer app.
And you've been with the volunteer app team and previously the PCAVs team for a while. Have you, how would you describe the experience of volunteers and who we see joining the teams?
We have all different kinds of people. First of all, people who have lots of experience, people who are very new to that. But I think there is one thing that links them all, and it's the passion to continue learning and to doing something good and kind of sharing sharing their skills. And it was amazing to see people grow. Some of them moved away and started their own careers and flourishing in their new workplaces. And it was great. It's that enthusiasm that people have really helps feed that. And since I'm one of the volunteers as well, one of the things that I get from volunteering and then still working in the same kind of line is all the learning that I'm getting. It's you're reacting to completely different issues while you're volunteering than the ones that you meet in your 9 to 5. So it's good to have this completely different skill set that you can still adapt and bring to your workplace. And I'm very proud of that.
You touched on it a bit there, Andy. One of the things with volunteering is it is unpaid, so it has to stay fun. And the minute it becomes not fun, it's amazing how quickly people ghost you. You mentioned fun, Andy. What makes it fun for you?
Yeah, and that's one of the big differentiators. I think, as I said, we've all got busy day jobs, and so my role in the STA, by the way, is in the triage team. So it's not the front door of the charity. I think it's just behind the front door. So we meet with the charities usually up front to look at requirements and what the challenge is. What's just behind the front door, by the way? Is that the doorman? The doorman, right? So, and that in itself is a really fun role because you're meeting with the charities. They're delighted to have someone to talk with and someone to help. So it's an upbeat conversation usually from the start. There's a lot about expectation management because, to your point, everyone's a volunteer who will deliver and they've got a certain amount of time and bandwidth available. But to be honest, everyone's been really understanding of that and therefore, so you've got an upbeat client, you've got an upbeat volunteer team, and so I've certainly personally found the team dynamic really strong. But if it was to change, if it was to become too onerous or too difficult or too admin or too bureaucratic, I'm sure some people wouldn't find it so much fun. So I'm very conscious in my role in the triage team to keep it on delivery, but to keep it upbeat. And people are given an amazing amount of time. I'm sure it varies a lot, but the projects I work on, people just want to get it done, in addition to their 9 to 5.
And I mean, Doogie, you've been with us for a while, helped out with the volunteer app for a while, but more recently have been working with the platform team. Now, they are, most of them, 3 years in, still there. Why are they all still there, do you think?
The platform team is a funny one. So the platform team basically supports a lot of the AWS infrastructure that the STAs various projects run on top of. I think that's just because it's a really good mix of people. There's a good range of experience, and there's a lot of people playing off each other, and it's one of the teams that I've worked with that has got the balance right. So there's some really, really experienced people, and there's some not so experienced people who are really kind of looking to move into that sort of field, and there's a bit of mentoring going on, there's a bit of coaching, and that's probably why that team works so well, yeah.
And Jane, recently you've been helping us shape up a few projects again. We were delighted to have you come back and help out. What have you found different about the STA coming back? Sort of, because obviously with people on furlough, there was a lot more time available. And, you know, I would say a lot of the people still looking to keep going had a lot of experience. Our growth with universities, with Code Clan, changed that dynamic dramatically for us. Have you seen many differences between the sort of early years, as we call it?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was great because you got to interact with so many different people in different organisations, and that's been fantastic from a networking perspective, but still connecting with different people on a couple of projects. You're meeting new people that you would never have worked with before, so that's been really good. And then each individual project's very interesting. It's a new thing that you would probably not get into in your day job, and you're like, oh, this is exciting. How could we solve this problem? And I think when you're in this environment, you're free of sort of work structures, and you're able to think much more freely about how to solve it. What technology could we use? Or it could be done this way, it could be done that way, and it's just much more dynamic because of that.
And you mentioned networking there. Have any of the other panelists managed to dig into that part of the STA?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience meeting with new people, learning new things that I would never have come across in my day job, and just having that experience to transition, because I came from the background of a technology company, building the tech for charities without really interacting with the charities. But STA has given me that opportunity to have that interaction with the charities, to understand how they operate, understand what their needs are, because it felt like in my day job, we're building technology, just imagining what charities would want and imagining all the fancy things we could do for them, and realizing that, well, they don't need all these things. They're very simple, and they just want things to work for them. So it was a good experience for me interacting with people, and also interacting with other volunteers who have more experience working with charities, and learning from them how patient they are. I was like, wow, everybody's so nice and patient. Like, that's not how it is in my day job.
To the point on networking, I've certainly found, with a bit more time on my hands, I often introduce the Scottish Tech Army for the first time to other people, and it's an odd name, I'll be honest with you, right? The brand lands like, what is that? Like, so it opens up a conversation, and actually it's helped me personally to connect with other networks in Scotland. Thinking of the Data Lab and some of the tech groups in Glasgow and Edinburgh. And it's a really strong, once you've got that discussion going, it's a really strong brand, and hopefully I've managed to bring a few people in. So it's an intriguing proposition for people if they've got a busy day job. What would that mean for them? You know, something else to try.
And I guess, I mean, Jane, I know recently you've been helping recruit as well as sort of Andy. So, I mean, what would you say is the difference between when you're talking to people and they've not got involved yet versus when they start to get stuck in? Because credit to all of you, you've shown up, you're doing the work, you're doing the hard yards. You know, some people do come in and go, I don't think I've got enough time. And that is perfectly okay. You know, it has to be the right time for you. You have to have enough time to dedicate to it as well.
Never forgotten the question. Yeah, I think, I mean, I always speak to people about it because I think it's a great conversation starter, and try and encourage people to come and get something else out of it. I think it helps you perhaps in a job interview situation because you're doing something else. It shows that you're open to other technologies, that you're not stuck in, that sometimes in a job you're stuck in a narrow position. I think it shows that you've got scope and you can see things differently. And I think it's a great thing. I mean, I'd like to see more people of the grey coloured hair brigade join and hand that knowledge and experience back down to younger people, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's nice. We've had phases where I'd say the mentoring has sort of got a lot more people getting involved, and then there's phases where just it almost feels like as the market gets busier, those people kind of step back for a bit, and then as the market eases, so we do see the sort of impact of the job market within the STA as well. I guess, have any of you kind of got involved in mentoring a lot of the younger members? I think, Magda, I know the number of job hires through the STA volunteer app is enormous. So.
I don't really see it that way. I probably do that, but I don't really call it that. I definitely worked with Scrum Masters. I am a Scrum Master both in my 9 to 5 and in STA. So I do have a lot of conversation with people and really try to kind of put them on the right track. If just like me, they are changing careers, they don't know how to get their first job. So I did a lot of that, but I also reached out to a number of people that I know through STA and either collaborated with them or I do see their activities within the STA space, and they'll reach out and say, well, listen, I've heard about this opportunity. Do you want to try? Let's do this together, and so on. And this is such an amazing pool of talent that we can really dip in as people who can then, looking for people to work for your organizations, for your teams, and you already seen them in action. I mean, how good is that? It's not just the 3-hour interview that you would normally have in tech. You already seen them doing something. You know their personalities. You know how they react to conflict or a crisis. And this is the interview that takes 3 months, and you already know who you're getting. So why wouldn't you just do that?
It was quite funny. I do remember with the Scrum Master community, we went through a period of people wanting to watch. And we were kind of like, well, you can join in, but you're not allowed to watch. Because we do really try and sort of get people to get over that fear of joining in as well. Because, the amount of times I'm sure we've all heard, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not sure where to start. And actually people do. The map, I don't know if you remember, I'm so proud of it, it's ridiculous. That Alistair showed in his presentation was done by an ex-Code Clan graduate who was like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, don't know what to do. With a little bit of encouragement, he's knocking it out of the park, he's finishing enhancements before the call's finished, and he will use that in interviews, and hopefully, fingers crossed he gets a job soon.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, so that gap, I happen to mentor 2 or 3 students who are just finishing their courses on master's courses, and they've got tremendous skills in data and AI and applications of computer science. But what they're struggling with is getting beyond the lack of experience, because the courses are still rather theoretical and they may be not exposed to app development or website development or cloud development for a customer. And in fact, it'd be unlikely that they were. So the STA and some of that work packages that we do gives people a perfect chance to try something out, to usually work with somebody a bit more experienced probably, to get a bit of mentoring. And then they've got a very credible story, I think, to tell in that first interview that helps them secure a starter position. And it's pretty unique in doing that. I'm not sure there are many other organisations that are as open to, say, final year students who could join and get that experience.
I think I can speak to being mentored. I haven't had the opportunity to mentor anyone, but I have been mentored, learning from more experienced people. So I'm advancing to become like a senior product manager or a senior product owner, and sitting on projects, listening to more experienced people, how they approach the projects, how they ask for requirements from charities and things like that. So I'm inspired, I take notes, and also try to do like Joanna said, because you're not just going to sit back and watch, you're going to have to get your hands dirty and do as well. And I also remember sitting on a talk, because the STA also has opportunities for talks, like where experienced people give talks. And I sat in on a talk about writing queries for large language models and prompting AIs. And I'm like, what's all that? But after that experience, I was able to go out and search for things with ChatGPT, and I got like more in-depth answers, different from when I just go in and type something random. I didn't know there was a special way to ask ChatGPT for things.
Well, guess who you're sitting next to, Chidi? How did you find, so we run talks for the volunteers. We tend to pick themes. The last that Joe ran for us was around accessibility. I learned an enormous amount, even just kind of sitting there listening to various people. Andy, you gave a fantastic talk on AI to really start sort of opening that box for our volunteers. How did you find that? Did they get involved? How was it?
Yeah, I was totally bluffing it, to be honest. I'm glad that bluff worked. What I'd found, even I've been with the ST for about a year, was there was a lot of conversations about AI with the charities up front. Amongst their other thoughts where I'm kind of hearing about AI, it's a real hype. I think we should be doing something, but I'm really not sure, to be honest, what to do. So we'd heard it enough times, and it wasn't just me, you'd heard it as well, and I think we'd all probably had something, that it was worth starting. The mindset was, like Alistair mentioned earlier, just start with something, and from there grows confidence. So what we thought we'd start with is, one of the common themes is finding funds. So everyone needs, all charities and charter organisations need funds, and it's tough. The feedback is it's getting increasingly tough. And there are some services out there that help, I think, charities find funds, but you have to pay for them. And so we thought, okay, could we do something with the ChatGPTs of this world? And that's what that demo and that tutorial was. And all it really is like a structured prompt and some access to the internet, aligning the values of and the objectives of your charity with the funders, like we heard earlier, with the funders who are global now. And if there's a good alignment, you can use these ChatGPT tools to pull back a list of, say, the top 10, and then you obviously can use them to help draft the application. So that was the basis of the talk. I think subsequently I've worked with 7 of the charities now on just like content generation. Everyone's got usually a website. We work with Tony at Dress Code, for example, on the starter lessons. So everyone's got content needs, and these tools are awesome at either bluffing your way or
well, I mean,
creating
and
content.
to bring the example you came to life. So we started with funders. Is there a way? And the goal basically is, rather than it be that thing you see on TV, that thing far away, all of the technology conversations we're having with charities is, it doesn't need to be that far away. You've all got a mobile phone. You're happy with that. Just have a go. Because the next time might be when you actually need to start using it, basically. Andy's talked to a number of charities to bring that closer, to make it not the thing that's so scary. It doesn't mean they have to use it, but the opportunities are there, and it steps you closer. Jane, I know on a few of the projects, one of the banes of my life was getting enough volunteers to do the research and go and do the hard yards, finding, right, what open source systems exist, what considerations do you need? And you just finished an AI course, haven't you? So
yeah, I just did a course, and similar to you, just creating on prompting, and I used that for basically everything you gave me. How can I find this? How can I find that? And doing multiple line of thought prompts to just pull up and really just create requirements and product roadmaps. Obviously, you've got to go back and check them, but it's a good starter for 10, and to think about all the things that you'll need in the project. And we got there really quickly, didn't we?
yeah, but you can see, like the BAs and people like this, it's going to transform how they work. And they're going to need these skills. So, the more we can seed people as they have a go, try it, it won't feel quite as challenging at work when you're like, you fail. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you don't get it right in the STA. The rest of us will QA it, keep it going. And what you do may or may not get out to the charity, depending whether it's suitable or not. But, it's an interesting... Doogie, you look like you're about to...
Yeah, it's just, you kind of touched on something that actually quite often the charities don't really know what they want. And oftentimes when they come to you and what they ask you for, especially apps are quite common. We need an app that's going to solve all our woes. And actually, one of the main things that we kind of need more of are business analysts, because that's a skill set that's really needed to understand what charities are looking for. I'm trying to think of... so a good example is we did a project through Barclays as well with Bernardo's. And looking at the original ask, it wasn't really clear what was going to be needed, but then spending time running through like ideation sessions and really looking at the requirements, it became quite obvious that really what they needed was some system that took care of their mountains of paperwork that they generate that are not at all tracked in any kind of like CMS or anything, and they really needed a mechanism to track when they run a program where mentees get put into work placements, and they need to know when they've arrived at their placement so they know they'll be safe, everybody's ticking all the boxes, but it also backs up their funding from local authorities. So that was the aspect we were able to take on and sort of drive a solution for, because it's quite a short window. But yeah, that's definitely something that it's not just really technical skills that the SDA needs, it's also people who've got that appreciation of wider systems and can look at a process and say, okay, cool, I know you want an app, but actually you don't need that. I think for anybody here that works in fintech, you must have come across this, when somebody tells you, I need you to automate this process, and you look at it and think, no, you need to change your process. So there's quite a lot of that sort of expectation management. One of the other things I kind of wanted to touch on, sort of changing the subject, but maybe going back a little bit, is talking about networking. It's also quite interesting to see how graduates and apprentices see the world and the things that they're taught. My last couple of years in the forces was spent in training and development, so I'm fairly familiar with it. And I don't know if this has been you guys' experience as well, but what I expected graduates to know and be good at is not at all what they are good at. I mean, as a career changer, certainly I've seen this working here as well. I thought they'd be all over everything to do with development and they would understand it in and out, but it's not. Yeah, sure, they can program, they understand algorithms, understand data structures, but what they don't really typically ever understand is things like version control or setting up a dev environment. These are the things they all really, really struggle with. So it's been good for a lot of the people we mentor to develop those, really simple things like, understanding the difference between when do you need to rebase and git. These are things they don't understand. You'll watch them do things like, well, I've had a merge conflict, so I'll just delete my entire code base, pull it again, and paste across what I've done already. Fingers crossed it's good to go, which obviously doesn't work. So it's been quite interesting that, but it's also for me, as somebody who's cracking on, to understand what the differences are, and the things that I thought people would struggle with are not the things that people struggle with. And also, maybe we could adapt our system. So like within the volunteer app, one of our biggest problems was that the app was available on iOS and Android and was getting emulation set up on people's workstations so they could test their apps in real time, which is what drove us to move away to start using Expo to have it, so you just scan a QR code and it pops up on your phone. And that's made a lot of things simpler. But I think also working in a big organization has been really useful because it's given me a much, much better understanding with new people coming into my team, but also certainly within Barclays for things like, I do a lot of interviewing for the apprentice graduate schemes and developer programs. Yeah, it's really understanding that and giving me a little bit more breadth as well to look at. We talk a lot about things like diversity and inclusion and getting a wider group of people in from different backgrounds and perspectives, and that's something that has been really good for, is knowing what you can learn that you need to learn quickly and get up and running, get your feet under the table, so to speak, even though you've got a different background that isn't predominantly technology. And I think that's definitely something we could really sell.
There's so much I could pick up on there. One of the things I think when you start, nobody gives you the rule book of what you need to bring to your first job. And it is like I was always surprised how just getting people to communicate. but equally, I forgot, and it reminded me when I looked after my very first graduate, taking her to a team meeting of 10 people, and she went bright red when she was asked to talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've never been in a situation like this. Now, we use tools like Slack and communication tools like that, and people kind of go, I don't want to put a message on a group with 3,000 people. And it's like, I get that, actually. But that's really where people like the guys on the stage become that, go and talk to Doogie, go and talk to Magda. So it becomes that sort of safe space to kind of get people talking and get that communication. I think we've got the next batch of newbies joining the volunteer app, don't we?
Yes, exactly. We're going to have, three new people joining the team. And that's the thing, you have to make them feel welcome, and you need to make sure that they understand that what they're going to be doing really adds value. And but I would also say to what Doogie said and what you were saying, like people who are changing careers, the graduates, when they start working with the STA, when they start volunteering, you have this opportunity to make mistakes in a safe space. I think there's a lot that's being said generally in the industry, in fintech, where I come from. is that, it's fine to make mistakes, this is how you learn, but nobody really wants to make mistakes because mistakes cost money. Here is a safe environment where you can really learn, and that is also good, and I think that kind of maybe attracts some people as well, that you can actually try those things that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise tried, and whether it's using AI, at work, try using Copilot when you're coding and so on. The kind of things that maybe are not exactly allowed at work, you can do this here, and you can kind of hone in on your skills and get better. But yes, what you said, John, about like creating that environment that you know that you're valued, that it's okay to make mistake, that you are amongst friends, I suppose.
I think but it's those differences that make it so much fun working in these mixed teams. The more I think about it, you're right, it's a kind of safer, I think it is a safer environment. To be honest, our expectations are a little more different of each other. And the other thing I'm starting to realise actually is the corporate partnerships part of the Scottish Tech Army network is tremendously powerful. I actually met a PwC potential future colleague today who may be working on one of the projects. So the prospect there is we've got a couple of individual volunteers, I guess, from the large Scottish Tech Army volunteer team, and a package of folks from, say, PwC, and that'll be excellent for those volunteers because they will also build their own networks, new ways of working. I think they'll be able to experiment with some new ways. That's quite a unique combination. If you're working as a sole contractor, the ability to step into the PwC environment and so on, that's quite unique,
Yeah, and what's amazing is our volunteer pool has created the kind of links to keep the projects going. Because at the end of the day, within work, you're given an amount of time, a certain number of days that you can volunteer. It's not forever. But the project doesn't disappear. Very often, once you've got the momentum, you've started to build, you can't just stop because there's an expectation that something's going to come up. So, it has forced, as projects get more complex, to break them down into smaller units. People have to achieve something volunteering. Otherwise, it doesn't feel so good, basically. So those small nuggets that kind of take us along, the community then has been our bridge between the projects, because you can't volunteer, it's one firm one day, not every day. So, these projects need to be picked up and kind of taken so far. There's been a lovely example recently with the team at Seascape, kind of really coming to life with an idea that it'll be interesting to see. We'll get it so far within the sort of the corporate project, and then we might need to add to it or look where it goes with volunteer groups. The beauty being there's a demonstration of good work there as well. So the other thing that's really challenging with volunteers when you're building from scratch is, what does good look like? How do you give people good documents, good guidance, good whatever? These guys have been fundamental in building that up, but it's not copy and paste from the corporate world. It doesn't work. A PMO with all of that structure is just all the stuff we hide away from in our day job, so we're not going to run to it in our spare time. So it's been really interesting doing what bits does it break when you don't have a balance sheet, when you don't have to go to the board in a way that you do within a corporate environment, and then what bits make the project still fail when they're not in place, which has been, all of you have contributed to that learning and what works. But we haven't talked so much about our clients, and I know, Chidi, you mentioned at the beginning enjoying working with the charities, and you have the lovely Wilma from the Cumbernauld Group. How's that been for you then, getting that time?
Yeah, so I'm working with CASE. So they're a charity that caters to the elderly. So they have activities where the elderly come to spend their time and they are taken care of. They have befriending services and some other services to cater to the elderly. So with the CASE charity, they're looking for a way to kind of put in all their information, all their data in a single place, so that each time they need that information for end-of-year reports, or they need to source for funding or to renew their funding, they can just go into that system and get the data they need and use it for the application. So working with them has been really nice. I remember the first part of the project, we kind of figured out what the issues were, and what steps we needed to take to sort them out. And Wilma, who is the lady in charge of the project from the case team, was like, oh, Chidi, we've spent a lot of your time. Are you sure we shouldn't end it here? Can we ask for more time? And at a point, I stopped hearing from her, and I remember speaking to Joanna and asking Joanna, is Wilma satisfied with what we've done so far? And Joanna comes back to me to say that, oh, Wilma was so worried that she's taking a lot of our time and she doesn't want to bother us anymore. And I'm like, but we haven't gotten to the end of the project. And yeah, like, they're really appreciative of the time and the effort we put in. And to think of it, it's not so much of our time. It's something that we could do in a few minutes sometimes, or in a few days, or in a few weeks. But that commitment that we put in, it makes a lot of impact for them, and they say it as a whole lot. So don't think about spending all your time working on projects or volunteering. The little you give makes a whole lot of impact, and you don't realize it until you speak with them and get their feedback.
I think that's a really nice, the small bits make a massive difference is one of the things we've definitely learned over the last 4 years. I am conscious of time. I've got Graham sort of nodding at me. If anybody has any questions, we do have maybe a few minutes, just if there are any burning questions from the audience.
Shot straight up.
Sorry, I had two questions, but we talked earlier about charities being overburdened and underfunded and things like that. How did the SDA deal with the requests from our charities for help, and how do you prioritise that? And do you actually have to say no sometimes?
We look for what we can do, rather than focus on what we can't. A lot of very simple stuff is there's a whole lot of stuff that's free or discounted that charities don't know about. So there's a huge amount of information that Andy and the triage team will be imparting on them to get ready. And then a lot of really what we stand on is scalability and how do we do this once for many charities. So we're always looking for, which is classic technology. You know, we're not all rebuilding Microsoft every day. You know, we use Excel and everybody uses it widely. So that aggregation has helped a lot. There are projects that are too complicated, and there are, you know, if they have a technology team, I don't currently, I'd love to find a way, understand how a team working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, can work with a volunteer turning up once a week and doing 4 hours, and the volunteer not look like he's not very good. So, you know, within what we try and do is it's packaged, it's isolated, and it allows both parties to shine. And it's difficult. So far there's enough signs of success, and we're working through the bits that work well, so we do more of that and mitigate where things are harder, basically. But no tends to be if they step away often if they've got funding anyway. People have been good at self-discounting, and equally, you know, if a project leads to somebody getting a job, that's a win for me, because we want to work within the technology ecosystem as well. I don't know if anybody else.
One of the things that really adds value is sometimes you see very, very common trends. And I think the best example of this is that a large number of charities come to us they just want WordPress websites. They want something that's really easy to administer, that they can manage the content of, and it's nice and straightforward to manage, but have not been well supported by internet service providers, if the truth be told. So I think that's where you can add, it's like the opposite of most things. If everything is one simple problem, then you can add a lot of value by having something you can repeat again and again and again, which we do have we can roll out WordPress sites very quickly and relatively low cost to continue to support. But traditionally it's one of those technologies that most people balk at and they don't really want anything to do with. It's not got a great reputation, but actually it fits the use case quite well. And if a lot of people can be directed to that, it allows more time for other volunteers to focus on the more complex challenges, the things that kind of keep them maybe a little bit more interested. But yeah, I think it's definitely about reuse. You can tackle a lot of problems with reuse.
There was another question over.
I did, quite quickly. So what you said feeds into my second question. You mentioned you're the cloud platform. How do you support that financially for charities, or do they have to provide funding? How do you manage that? Because there's maybe an expectation you built something. Who supports it? Who pays for it? It's not a zero cost.
Well, that's for you.
So the funding changes year on year. Now what we're currently working with 2 charities to go through the process of getting them AWS credits, for example, basically. But I mean, constantly Michael and the platform team are like, their mission is to make things as close to zero as possible, and it's phenomenal how cheap a lot of the stuff. And you know, some of it's good habits for the developers as well. It's like, close down your environment when you finish. You know, the minute you turn the lights on, there's a bill. And getting people to think like that is good for the environment, and it's good for company money as well. There was, I think it's Amanda over here as well, sorry. You can always come and find us afterwards as well, please. I think it's on.
So each of you kind of touched on, obviously you've all got experience now in business, you've been experienced within STA as volunteers as well. You all touched on one way or another about how there's more creativity and more people willing to try and ultimately, hopefully, fail fast, learn faster. Do you feel that that spurs on more innovation in some of the solutions that are coming up? And if so, what are some of the most creative things that you've seen?
Yes and no is the unhelpful answer. Yes, there's quite a lot of times, especially with younger team members, where they have a really obvious solution that just nobody else can see, and that diversity does bring that sort of thing in. But also it's quite common where they can look to a mentor who's got a very staid way of doing things, and particularly with corporate teams, they can often see there's a right way based on their prior experience. So I think it's down to the individual project. I'm trying to think of something that we've done that's really, really innovative. I think probably things to do with soundscape is probably one of the bigger projects, but I didn't really work on that, so I couldn't really tell you much about it.
I suppose using the AI prompting, which we've all done, that's I'm sure you probably wouldn't be allowed to do that in a corporate environment. So just sort of asking it the problem in a structured way and using that to get a whole lot of documentation quickly. I think that's a more innovative way of doing things.